Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning for those of you not on the East Coast, and welcome to today's webinar. We know your schedules are busy, and we appreciate you taking time out of your day to learn more about the future of EDA, the Fusable Platform. My name is Edward Pronley, your host, and I'll be getting us started today before handing things over to our main presenter, Sydney Spears. Sydney is a director of product management here at Fusable and the person who led the development of the Fusable platform. Over the past year and a half, Sydney has worked closely with many of our EDA clients to understand what you value most in a prospecting tool and what improvements would make your day-to-day work faster and more effective. As many of you know, we launched the Fusable platform about 4 months ago. And since that launch, Sydney and our sales team has had hundreds of conversations with customers across the country about improving their prospecting experience. We've listened closely to the questions customers are asking, the workflows they want to see demonstrated, and to the challenges they're trying to solve. And what we learned from those conversations is the basis for what we will show you today. Today's presentation is not just a typical feature tour. Instead, we've condensed the most common demo questions we're hearing into a focused session for you. Each scenario Sydney will cover reflects real questions asked by professionals with roles and responsibilities very similar to yours, people who are tackling the same challenges you face. Our goal today is simple: to show you exactly how the Fusable platform answers these real life questions. Because we believe seeing how the Fusable platform solves the problems you actually care about is the best way to understand its value for your business. By the end of this webinar, you should have a clear understanding of how the Fusable platform helps you identify high quality leads and overcome real life prospecting challenges, enables your team to prioritize resources around the highest value targets, helps you identify recent buyers before your competition does, improves your most important prospecting workflows. In short, our goal is to help you see how the Fusable platform can help you spend less time searching for leads and more time closing deals. We also want to encourage you to submit questions throughout the webinar. If you look at your Zoom controls, you'll see the Q&A button in the bottom menu. When you submit a question, one of my teammates will follow up with you after the webinar to ensure you get the answers you need. We also invite you to share any prospecting scenarios or challenges that you're trying to solve. Our team routinely builds custom demos based on these types of submissions, showing exactly how the new Fusable platform can help you find high quality prospects faster and more efficiently. One last thing before I hand it over to Sydney, let's talk about winning some free Carhartt gear. Everyone who registered and joined us today is automatically entered into our giveaway. We'll announce the winner at the end of today's webinar, so make sure you stick around until the end. With that, I'm going to hand things over to Sydney Spears to get us started.
Right. Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Thanks, Ed, and thank you all for being here today. As Ed mentioned, it's been about 4 months since we launched the Fusable platform, and I've spent a lot of time working directly with customers, helping them and showing them how the platform can improve their prospecting experience. And from all those conversations that I've had, we've pulled together the most common questions and some of the more interesting demo requests, and those are what we are going to share with you today. So think of this webinar as a super condensed version of all of the conversations that we're having with customers who are facing the same kinds of challenges that you do. Before we jump over into the first use case story and the first scenario, I did want to quickly level set on what the platform is for those of you who are maybe less familiar with the product I'm talking about today. It's probably a good place to start. At its foundation, the Fusable platform is a modern web-based prospecting solution built on the enhanced version of EDA's industry-leading data. It includes real financing activity across multiple equipment-driven industries, along with business intelligence and insights that are immediately actionable. It helps you build targeted lead lists, research companies, and prioritize opportunities. There's a good reason we call it the Fusable platform, and it's the Fusable platform, but we call it the future of EDA as well. The data in it is enhanced, the workflows are much faster, the experience is cleaner, the design is more intuitive, we've really reduced the friction and we've simplified list building and we've just made it easier to surface insights. Everything is built to support how sales and marketing teams actually work today. It's all about helping you find and act on the right opportunities with way less effort. So those are some fairly lofty claims that I've made about Fusable Platform. And with that, let me go ahead and switch my screen over to the platform and show you how it addresses some of the prospecting challenges for professionals like yourself. So let me do my screen dance here. Share. There we go. All right, you guys should be seeing the login screen. But actually, before we sign in, I want to start us off today just kind of setting up the story before we jump right in. So one of the most common questions that we hear during demos is, how can I quickly find companies that match the exact profile my business is built around? So that question can come in all kinds of flavors and variations. Sometimes it's, folks want to focus on a specific equipment type. They want to focus on a specific model. Sometimes it's a geographic sweet spot or, specific ownership patterns that they're looking for that work really well for their team. But the theme is always the same. Show me buyers that fit my work, not just everyone who owns equipment. That's not super helpful. And one of the best examples of this scenario came from a conversation I had with a used equipment broker back in February. This person he's not a person who is looking for broad categories or large lists. His whole job is connecting very demanding clients who want something very specific with the companies that own exactly that type of machine. And not everyone fits that criteria. So during our call, he was like, hey, can Platform find me construction companies in Texas? It's got to be Caterpillar, and they have to be around 3 or 4 years old. And I got to narrow it down even further to companies that have more than just one piece of equipment that I'm looking for. And that last part I learned later on was very, very critical for his team. He told us that if a company has 2 or more of any of the equipment type or model that he's looking for, then his conversation with potential sellers goes very differently than the conversations where a company only has one of the machines. Sounds like they were hardly ever successful when a company just had one machine. So for him, that level of precision isn't a nice to have. It's part of their whole business model. So let's jump in, and I'm going to show you that same workflow that I showed the used equipment broker, so you can quickly see how the platform helps build those highly, highly targeted lists and match your needs. Again. Right. So we are going to start by clicking on List Builder over here. So as you can see, we land on our template page. We will go through and we'll use one of these templates later. But for this use case in this scenario, we know what we're looking for. So let's go ahead and build this one from scratch. So this customer said, it's looking for in Texas. He was looking for compact track loaders. Let me type. He's looking for Caterpillar specifically. And then he said they got to be 3 or 4 years old. So that maps out to, let's do 03/01 2022 to 03/01 2023. There we go. We build our list. Let's do Texas. Yeah, Texas. A very creative name. Woo! And that's our list. And that took us just maybe a couple minutes. And granted, we knew what we wanted, but to build this list over here in Platform, that was a lot faster than building it over in EDA today. So that's really great. So here's our list. So kind of starting from left to right, let me go ahead and just give a quick little tour. So you have your company name, the city, the state, their financed units and filtered units. And so financed units, let's talk about these for just a second. That is the total number of pieces of equipment that a company has financed in the past 5 years. In your next column, you have filtered units, and that shows you how many of the total pieces of equipment were financed based on the filters that we just added a few seconds ago. So if you're looking at this list, like, okay, we want to make sure that we're narrowing it down to the very specific, brand that he's looking for. As we were looking at this list in that demo, the customer was like, this is great. Thank you so much. But I actually need this narrowed down just a little bit further if we can. He had a specific model in mind. So he asked, can we look for 299 D3Xes? I'm like, yes, absolutely. So let's add that. He's like, that's the equipment that we're looking for. So as you can just see, we went over to our filters. We just added a new filter in there. And then it repopulated our list. And now we have a very targeted, specific list that he's looking for. And we can now sort by the number of filtered units, which again, filtered units is based on our parameters. And so this means that, Side Compresso Operating LLC, they have 73 pieces of equipment that they financed in the past 5 years. And 6 pieces of those equipment specifically are Caterpillar 299 D3Xes. That is what that means. So that's a really great, honestly, prospect to start digging into. So let's do that. So then looking over here, once we land over here, at this point, the customers, like, you can kind of tell when I get the chin prop, we were chin propped at this point. He's looking at it. And so we're looking at this one. We just kept diving in a little deeper. Okay, yep. Obviously, this customer is a Caterpillar heavy user, buyer, and they actually have 22 299 D3Xes. But again, 6 of those, like we just saw, were purchased 3 or 4 years ago. And that's what they were looking for specifically. So again, looking at it, we're like, oh, it's a really great prospect. Here's the contact information that you can go ahead and call them. And if you wanted to just see where they are on a map, this is actually a newer feature that we just released last week, actually. You actually have a picture of them on here. And if you click on the map, you can actually go jump over to that map. So again, for this customer, this level of targeted precision is, with the contact information, that was the reason, at that point, he was like, okay, I'm in. I would like a quote, please. And I like sharing this story, not just because, the equipment broker, he did take the next step to getting to Fusable Platform, but I share it because I do think that it does a great job of showing off the unique capabilities that our system has to offer. So let's keep going. We have another scenario that I do hear often, and it's a common challenge specifically that I hear from customers about how long it takes to get their teams working leads. And so in that conversation that I was having, I was talking to 2 regional sales managers at an equipment dealer, and they were explaining how currently their workflows is painfully slow in EDA to create the list, generate the list, figure out how to send the list. And so that takes them well into 15 to 20 minutes to do, and sharing it with their team, which is so cumbersome even after that 15, 20 minutes. What they end up doing is they resort to screen sharing and just taking screenshots of a bunch of the results and texting them out to their team, because it's the only way for them to avoid, sending an export, an Excel to someone, and they don't have the time for the longer training sessions on how to access and use the data. And so when I showed them what the Fusable platform had to offer, they were so excited because they could very clearly see that it provided the time savings that they needed along with the information that their teams needed. So let me show you what I showed them. So we're going to keep using this list. Come over here. For sure, they didn't need specific brands or models. For them, these two sales managers, they were primarily focused on companies that had compact track loaders or skid steers because they sold various attachments that are designed to go on skid steers and compact track loaders, things like printers and stuff like that. So here, let's go ahead and add skid steer loaders. They were in Florida. I had to do it. I had to do it. And then for them, why don't we go back? I think they were looking for more like a year and a half. So why don't we just do 2025 to today? What is today? It's right there, the 26th. Do that. All right. And then we'll save our edits. So that is how you would update a list. So if you wanted to update your own list, it's really that easy. You just go in there and save your edits. If you wanted to create change your filters, but you're not necessarily wanting to change your list on, in that same scenario, you could actually save it as a new list. That way you can actually have both of those lists and you won't mess up your original one. So I want to call that out. So again, here we go. We have our new list of all of our companies. We have, city, state, finance units, and filtered units. So again, we have, Ripa and Associates LLC, they've got 816 finance, pieces of equipment that they financed in the past 5 years, but 21 of those pieces of equipment were financed within the past year and a half, essentially. That is, again, likely the one that we want to go with. Go here, right, go to this one. So we get Big Orange Rental. So what we can see here is that this particular customer, they're a pretty big Kubota buyer. They're a big one. And so let's say that these sales managers I was talking to, the best fit for them was Kubota products. What I can do here now is actually, let me go over here in this whole list. So even in our whole list, we can actually look at the whole quick filter. So here, for my prospect list, I can, if I wanted to, get through my analytics, go through that quick filter and look at a whole list with just Kubota. And again, these sales managers were interested in Kubota. But let's say you're like, nah, I don't want to do that. You don't have to do that. You can hit X and you go right back to this list. So for them, what was really, really helpful was being able to see very specific, what is the market for their area. Kubota is pretty close. It's not close. Kubota is the primary dealer over there in Florida, and then Caterpillar. And so for them, what was important for them is they just really wanted to be able to share these lists. And so going back to what we just created here. So the first part of their pain point was just how long it took to create the list. And so they're like, okay, we see that it's a lot faster to create it than to share it. You just click on the share link and you paste it. And now your team member has that same list. They can do the same sorting capabilities. They can go through the analytics and look at, what is the market. They have all that same access. And honestly, at the point of, oh my gosh, can I just email that link to folks? And you're like, yeah. At that point, they were sold. But going through and actually sharing some of the analytics pieces and showing, that was the deal sealer. And for this, this story I like to tell because it does show how platform isn't just a powerful search tool when you're searching for leads, but that it also has the functionality that makes it easy to share those leads, which then makes it easier for your teams to start working those leads. So that is what I was super excited to share here. So let's go on to the third scenario that I want to share with you. Now, another common use case that we hear about comes from our parts and service teams at, typically at equipment dealerships. I'll give you an example of a conversation I had with someone at a conference maybe like a year and a half ago, and he was a manager for a parts department. He told me that they had gotten a call, their parts team, someone on his team had gotten a call, and a company was looking for a very specific replacement part for a Volvo excavator. The challenge was that they didn't have that very specific Volvo part at the time. And that team member just did what every other team member would have done, which is, hey, we don't have that part, but here are the other folks that have it. Go ahead and give them a call. Well, later that day, he was telling his boss about it. He was talking to a couple of friends on the sales team, and he realized that the company that had called was actually a really large prospect that their sales team had been chasing for quite some time. And he maybe missed that opportunity to make a really good first impression with that prospect because he had the chance to maybe go, a little above and beyond to find that part that they needed for them and really open that door for the sales team. And so that's why that story stuck with me. Because, the manager that I was talking to was like, I just want to be able to prevent that from happening again. They needed a way to quickly understand how valuable a customer might be before deciding how to respond. So let me show you what I showed them. And essentially it's just how quickly it is to look up a company. So putting yourself in the shoes of that, employee for a second, all you have to do first is just ask what's the company name? What company are you with? And then from there, we can use platform's quick search. So I'm just going to type in one that is in my head already, which is Hughes Brothers Builders. Hughes, Hughs. In Florida. I just got back visiting my parents and we drove by this one. So that's why it's in my head. So there we go. So within a few seconds, I can see here that this company has financed 222 pieces of equipment over the past 5 years. And that alone tells me that this is a very active, high value operation. I can also see that they lean heavily towards, Caterpillar, John Deere, Volvo. And, this parts manager, he's like, we have all of those pieces just in stock, usually all the time. And then if you come up here and look, they've got articulated dump trucks, 34 excavators, 32 crawler dozers. This is definitely not a small operation. Like this is a company that's moving a significant amount of earth and things. These are large scale projects that they're working on. And then when we go over here to our handy dandy map view, one of the things that, showing that you could do is you could actually also drop your little guy here for the street view. Let's go here. Where are you going, buddy? Yay, there we go. So if you look over here to our street view, you can see that they've got a pretty decent sized showroom. They've got a couple of other buildings here, some service bays. Like again, this is not a small operation by any means. And that research took just a couple of minutes. And probably about the same time it would have taken, for the poor team member to just look up the parts, the level part in question. And this is exactly what what that manager was looking for. He was looking for a simple tool, to help them figure out, should they put in extra time with a prospect, or for someone who calls. They get a ton of calls every day for parts and pieces. And sometimes it's hard to know, when should you go above and beyond? And so for them, it helps them to believe that, phone calls that come into the parts team, those are no longer just parts requests. And the mission and kind of direction that a lot of companies are going towards is, hey, everyone's working together. We're all one team. Parts and services is a part of the sales team. We're all a part of building that relationship. And so now all of those calls that come through and these requests that come through, these are high value opportunities. And they want to be able to identify those so that they can potentially start to nurture new prospects right from the start. So that's why I do love telling that story. It just stuck with me for a long time, because I can totally put myself in that team member's shoes. I would have done the same thing. And now they have a way to prioritize high value customers. So we've gone through 3 different scenarios. I've got one more for you today. So the last scenario I want to walk through with. So another demo request that we get often actually comes from our friends and professionals in the banking and finance industry. My previous examples were focused more on equipment, or parts sales, but the platform is designed to support lending professionals as well. I'll give you an example of a conversation I had recently with a lending team that was opening a new branch in the Midland, Texas area. Their goal was super straightforward. They needed a way to help their loan officers prioritize the highest value lending opportunities in that market. So for them, they don't need just a list of construction companies in an area, a humongous list to sort through. They need a focused way and a focused view to help them understand who is actively financing equipment and where are the largest opportunities. What they're looking for essentially is a way to focus their effort on companies that are actively deploying capital. Or said another way, they are spending a lot of money. So let me show you how we approach this use case using the platform. So again, we'll start over here in our list builder view, and we'll start with our standard prospect list template. And so again, these templates are meant to help you save time. We did some research. We have a good understanding of what filters customers were using to kind of get them started. So these are editable. We know for sure, that they were talking about Midland, Texas. So the state is Texas. And then we offer city as just, a filter to help get you started. This particular customer, he actually already knew the counties that he wanted to be in. And so we put those in. And I do have a Post-it note on my computer to remind me what these were, because I would have never remembered all 4 of these. Midland and Martin, I did. These last 2, I'm not from Texas, so that one was tough. So we put in, Texas, the counties that he was interested in. We don't need type or brand for this one, so we can just delete those out of the template, no problem. And then for date ranges, they were also looking at, maybe just in the past year and a half, who's been buying, who's been buying equipment. So we'll do the same thing, do 01, 5 to today. That's a great one. And then bam, we build our list. We'll do new things. Hey, and here's our list. So again, let's take a quick look at where we're at. Companies, city, state, finance units. Again, these are going to tell you all of the units that a customer has purchased in the past 5 years. And then you have your filtered units, which again matches the parameters and the filters that we just added. So filtered units are going to be, these are the number of units that that company has purchased in the past year and a half. So just looking at this list, I don't even have to sort it. I can see that Alma Trucking, they've got 334 units, but in the past year and a half, they've only bought 25. But then you've got JMR Aviation, who they have 310, and in the past year and a half, they purchased 303 units. That is a lot of activity to happen in just 1 year. And on top of that, you can also see that their latest activity was February 12th, which is only really a few weeks ago, like 6 or 7 weeks ago. So these key data points provided a strong signal that this company is actively spending and likely in need of financing support. That's the part where usually the aha and the light bulbs start going off for the like with the lenders that I talk to. That's when they start to get the chin lean moment, start leaning in and tell me more. Because in just a few seconds, I can take an entire market and rank it based on the recent financing activity. And for the lending team I was talking to, that's incredibly valuable because now they're not just guessing, where the opportunities are. They're not working off static lists or old assumptions. They're looking at a prioritized view of companies actively spending money and the ones most likely to represent the largest lending opportunities. So those are the 4 scenarios that I was really excited to share today, because again, those are the things that we hear the most often now. Let me jump us back over to our handy dandy deck. Where now you should be seeing, what's coming up in the next 6 months. So earlier we were looking at, our financing use case and scenario. Well, good news, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be releasing our activity data or our transaction activity data. And so what that is going to include is we're going to have our financing activity date. We're going to have our financing status. We're going to have, did they lease that piece of equipment? Did they buy it? Is it new? Is it used? And who is the lending partner? So we're going to have all of that information that is going to be available in just a couple of weeks. I think, maybe just a week or so. After that, we're going to start rolling out some enhancements in our Q2 timeframe. We're going to start rolling out some updates and notifications work. So the first round of notifications and updates that you're going to see is we're going to start having an updates tab where you can start to see changes that a prospect profile has. So if a phone number is changed, if their company name changed, if their address changed, you're going to get a notification in the app and you're going to have a running history of that. So that's actually coming out in probably just in more than a few weeks. And then right after that, we're going to start releasing our prospect insight data. So that's going to be your brand loyalty data. We're actually going to have a lot of maybe little extra pieces of data in there that aren't available in EDA. So right now, EDA is very, brand loyalty. We have brand loyalty for industries. In the future, we're going to have brand loyalty, numbers to specific categories, specific equipment types. So that's really exciting and something that we're so excited to put into the platform for you guys. And then we're also going to be looking at exports in that Q2 timeframe, which is April, May, June timeframe. So we want to be able to provide the export feature. We know that that's an important feature, and so we're just looking at different pieces of feedback to see what would be the best experience for that today. So that's all exciting stuff to look forward to in our Q2 timeframe. And then in Q3, which is, July, August, September space, we're going to keep rolling out those updates and notifications. So you'll be able to get updates about a whole list. So let's say you come back to a list after maybe, a week or two, we're going to be able to say, okay, since the last time you were here, this is how many, new prospects are on this list. Because we're processing that UCC data constantly, it's daily. So, here's how many new customers are on this list. Here's how many maybe fell off of that list. Here's, how many pieces of equipment are now new on this list. And then the, third version of our updates and notifications is going to be, actually sending that notification to you via email. Um, so those are the things to look forward to in that space in Q3. And then finally in Q3, we're going to be, rolling out our team management tool, which if you're familiar with, EDA's STFs feature, it's going to be something very, very similar. It's a tool to help optimize and manage, your team territories. So lots of really good stuff. Really, the story about the next 6 months is a focus on ensuring that we are providing you guys with the right data and the right feature functionality so you can, again, quickly and efficiently find the highest value prospects in the shortest amount of time and with the highest level of ease as possible. And so, with that, I'm going to hand it back to Ed, and he's going to help us close out today.
Thank you, Sydney. And now a brief Q&A. We had some Fusible teammates in the background reading all of the questions today, and there were some frequently asked ones that we thought we could answer live. But as stated in the beginning, if you asked other questions in the chat today that aren't on this slide, one of our team members will follow up with you after the webinar to ensure you get the answers you need. So, Sydney, I've heard about the data core and the Fusible platform. Are they the same thing?
No, what a great question. But the simple answer is no. They are not the same thing. So the data core, you can think of that as it's a foundation. So think of a platform as the house. Data core is the foundation the platform sits on. It's the architecture. It's our taxonomy. It's everything that powers our, APIs, our services, and the platform. So short answer, no, they are not the same.
Does the prospect list show what kind of financing is being done? Lease, sales, etc.?
This is so kind of going back to what we're going to be releasing in the next, week or so. That information is not in the platform today, but it will be very soon. So whether or not, a customer lease sold, bought, refinanced, terminated, that information is going to be included in those activity data packages. Again, releasing in a week and a half or so.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'll wrap up the Q&A by answering the most popular question we get on these webinars, which is, how can I learn more? So first, everyone who registered today will receive a follow-up email with the recording of this session, along with the slides that we shared today. And from there, where you go next really depends on where you're starting. If you're a current EDA user, your account manager is the best place to start. They can walk you through the Fusible platform and answer any questions specific to your workflow. If you're new to Fusible, I'd encourage you to visit fusable.com, where you'll find a range of videos, articles, and other resources that give you a deeper look at the Fusible platform. Each of these resources has great information as well as a short request demo form you can fill out. Once you complete that form, a member of our team will reach out to you within 24 hours to help you get a personal look at the Fusible platform. And now the moment you've all been waiting for, the winner of the free Carhartt gear. A congratulations is in order for Becky F. from Ohio, today's winner. Becky, my team will reach out to you after the webinar to work through the logistics so we can get you your gift bag sent out as soon as possible. Last but very much not least, we'd like to ask you to fill out a short survey to let us know what you think about today's webinar. You should see the survey pop up on your screen in just a few seconds. If you're ready to have a live conversation, be sure to answer the survey question that asks if you'd like to have a one-on-one demo. But that's it for today. All of us here at Fusable, thank you for spending some time with us and learning about the new Fusable platform, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.